It was one of those quiet nights where everything felt calm on the surface, but strangely heavy underneath. I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, my phone resting against my ear as Emma talked endlessly like she always did. Her voice had this familiar warmth, like something constant in my life that I never questioned. We had been best friends for 6 years, and in those years, she had become more than just a friend. She was my safe place, my comfort, the person I told everything to without thinking twice. Anyway, she sighed softly, people are just so fake these days. I smiled slightly, adjusting my position on the bed. Yeah, I get that. There was a small pause, followed by the sound of movement. I'm gonna grab some water. Don't hang up. Okay, I replied casually, not thinking anything of it. I stayed on the call, scrolling mindlessly, half lost in my own thoughts. The line stayed open, quiet except for faint background noise. I didn't even realize how important that moment would become. Then I heard her voice again, but something was different. God, she's so exhausting sometimes. My heart skipped. At first, I didn't react. I assumed she was talking about someone else. Then she said my name. And in that exact second, everything inside me went completely still. I froze, my fingers tightening slightly around my phone. My breathing slowed as if my body was trying to process what I had just heard. There was no way she meant me. There had to be some misunderstanding. But then she spoke again, and this time there was no confusion. I swear, she acts like everything revolves around her. Her tone wasn't playful. It wasn't teasing. It was sharp, real. Another voice entered the conversation, her sister. Then why are you still friends with her? There was a small pause, followed by a quiet laugh from Emma. A laugh I had heard countless times before, but this one felt different. Because she needs me, she said casually. Without me, she'd literally have no one. The words hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just what she said, it was how easily she said it, like it was something she had believed for a long time. I felt my chest tighten, my throat dry, but I couldn't bring myself to hang up. She's so sensitive too, Emma continued. You have to be careful with everything you say. It's honestly draining. Draining. That word echoed in my mind. And suddenly, I wasn't just listening anymore. I was hearing the truth she never wanted me to know. I stayed completely still, as if any movement might somehow expose the fact that I was still on the call. My heart was pounding so loudly I was afraid they might hear it through the phone. Every second felt heavier than the last, but I couldn't pull myself away. Sometimes I feel like I'm just babysitting her emotions, Emma said, her voice lowering slightly. That sentence didn't just hurt, it shattered something deep inside me. Because it wasn't said in anger. It was said in honesty. My mind immediately started replaying every moment we had shared. Every time I opened up to her, every time I cried, every time I trusted her with my feelings. I had always believed she understood me, that she cared. But now it felt like all those moments had a completely different meaning. I swallowed hard, trying to hold myself together, but the tears had already started forming in my eyes. Why didn't she tell me this? Why pretend everything was fine? Why let me believe I mattered the same way she mattered to me? The silence between her sentences felt louder than her actual words. Because in that silence, I was finally hearing the truth. As I lay there, still holding the phone, my mind began to drift through memories that once made me smile. But now, each one felt different. Twisted in a way I had never noticed before. The times she took hours to reply to my messages. The way she would sometimes roll her eyes when I got emotional. The jokes she made that felt a little too personal. Back then, I had ignored all of it. I told myself I was overthinking. That this was just how friendships worked. Because at the end of the day, she always came back, always laughed with me, always said, "You're my best friend." But now, those same moments felt like quiet signs I had chosen not to see. Do you even like her? Her sister asked suddenly. The question hung in the air. And then came a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause. That silence said more than anything else could have. Because if the answer had been simple, she wouldn't have needed time to think. I mean, yeah, Emma finally said, her voice slower this time. But not the way she thinks. Those words didn't just hurt, they changed everything. I felt my stomach drop as a cold wave of realization washed over me. The friendship I thought was deep, unbreakable, and mutual, wasn't what I believed it to be. She thinks we're closer than we actually are, Emma continued. That was it. That was the moment something inside me completely broke. Because I had never questioned our bond. I had trusted it without hesitation. To me, she wasn't just a friend, she was my person. The one I thought would always be there, no matter what.
But to her?
I was just someone she tolerated. Someone she managed. Someone she talked about when I wasn't around. I closed my eyes, letting the tears fall freely now. The hardest part wasn't hearing something bad about myself. It was realizing that the person I trusted the most never saw me the same way. My hand trembled slightly as I stared at my phone screen. The call was still ongoing, their voices continuing in the background, but I couldn't focus on the words anymore. Everything had already been said. Everything that mattered, at least. For a few seconds, I just sat there, frozen between two choices: keep listening and hurt myself more, or end the call and face the silence. Slowly, my thumb moved toward the screen.
And then, I hung up.
The room instantly fell silent. A silence so heavy it felt like it was pressing against my chest. I stared at the phone, almost expecting it to ring again. A part of me hoped she would realize I was still there. That she would panic. That she would try to explain. But nothing happened. Because to her, the call had already ended. To her, I had already left. I let out a shaky breath, placing the phone beside me. But the silence didn't bring peace. It only made her words louder in my head. That night felt endless. I lay in bed, staring into the darkness, replaying every single word over and over again. No matter how much I tried to distract myself, my mind kept going back to that moment. She's exhausting. She's too sensitive. She needs me. Each sentence felt heavier than the last, like they were carving themselves into my memory. I turned onto my side, pulling the blanket closer, but it didn't help. Sleep felt impossible. My thoughts wouldn't slow down. Was I really like that? Had I been too much for her? Too emotional? Too dependent? For the first time, I started questioning myself in a way I never had before. Maybe she wasn't completely wrong. Maybe I had been blind to my own flaws. But even if that was true, didn't I deserve honesty instead of this? Didn't I deserve a friend who would tell me the truth to my face instead of saying it behind my back? By the time morning came, I hadn't slept at all. And I knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever feel the same again. The next day, my phone rang.
Emma.
For a moment, I just stared at the screen, my heart beating faster than it should. Everything inside me told me not to answer.
But I did.
Hey, she said cheerfully. I think the call dropped last night. I closed my eyes for a second. Yeah, it did, I replied quietly. There was a brief pause, but she didn't notice anything unusual. For a moment, I thought about pretending, acting like nothing had happened, keeping the friendship the way it was.
But I couldn't. I heard you, Emma.
Silence. What do you mean? I heard everything, I said, my voice steady but heavy. The energy on the call changed instantly. That's not what it sounded like, she said quickly.
But I didn't interrupt her.
Because I already knew the truth. People don't accidentally say things they don't mean. There was no screaming. No dramatic argument. Just a quiet, painful conversation filled with pauses and things we both struggled to say. I'm sorry, Emma said softly.
And I believed her.
But apologies don't erase truth. And they don't undo the way someone really feels. I just wish you had told me, I replied. She didn't have an answer for that. Because there wasn't one. Sometimes people don't say things because it's easier to pretend. Easier to keep things comfortable. Even if it means hurting someone later. Weeks passed after that conversation, and slowly, I started to heal. Not completely. But enough to understand something important. The pain wasn't just about what she said. It was about realizing I had given so much of myself to someone who didn't value me the same way. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones who show you the truth when you least expect it. Sometimes, the truth doesn't come from what people say to your face. It comes from what they say when they think you're gone.